Most of us learned the same history lesson. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered the New World. The problem is, Columbus was late by about 15,000 years. He wasn't even the first European to set foot on the continent. To understand how the modern United States formed, we have to look past the Spanish galleons and track the footprints of the continent's earliest and most frequent visitors. For millennia, this landmass has functioned as a crossroads for overlapping global migrations, with each successive group building upon the architecture of those who arrived before them. Over 15 millennia ago, the first humans entered North America via a coastal route, extending from Asia, across Beringia, and down the Pacific shoreline. Then, rapid warming melted massive ice sheets. Rising sea levels swallowed these coastal routes, stranding the new arrivals. Those early migrants spread out and built complex, continent-spanning civilizations. Through the Lithic, Archaic, and Mesoamerican periods, they engineered vast agricultural networks and constructed intricate cities long before European maps even had a blank space for the West. The indigenous peoples were the foundational architects of the landmass. They established a sprawling, enduring human presence, thriving for tens of thousands of years. Even after those civilizations were well established, the continent continued to host maritime visitors. Around the year 1001, the Norse explorer Leif Erikson successfully guided his ships to the shores of modern-day Canada. 8 centuries later, evidence suggests Polynesians navigated the vast Pacific to reach South America, leaving behind deep biological ties and picking up local crops like the sweet potato. There are even historical records and highly debated artifacts pointing toward early visits by Arab navigators, as well as the massive exploratory fleets of Chinese Admiral Zheng He. By the 15th century, the Americas were a recurrent destination for the world's seafaring cultures. So Columbus gets the historical spotlight for a specific reason. His arrival triggered an aggressive, permanent wave of European colonization that decimated indigenous populations and permanently occupied the land. He didn't even get to name the place. That honor went to an Italian navigator named Amerigo Vespucci, who secured the naming rights simply by writing more detailed, widely circulated geographical reports for the Spanish crown. Eventually, the British anchored their own claim, establishing the Jamestown settlement in 1607 and planting the seeds for the original 13 colonies. Those colonies grew increasingly frustrated as the British monarchy extracted their wealth through taxation while denying them representation in Parliament. That friction erupted into the Revolutionary War. On July 4, 1776, colonial leaders finalized a document formally declaring their independence from the British Empire. Ideological figures like Thomas Jefferson championed the democratic architecture of this new republic, pushing for a system built on elected representation rather than royal decree. To bind those 13 disparate colonies together, they drafted the Constitution, creating a single, centralized federal state. While European explorers brought settlers, it was this deliberate political revolt that transformed loose coastal colonies into the United States. The young nation aggressively expanded westward, purchasing new territories and pushing further into the continent. This rapid economic growth relied heavily on the systemic tragedy of African slavery. The deep national fracture over slavery finally snapped with the election of Abraham Lincoln, plunging the country into the Civil War. From 1861 to 1865, the brutal conflict cost hundreds of thousands of lives, but it ultimately preserved the fragile Union and initiated the long, complex process of Reconstruction. The war tested the very ideals the country was founded on, acting as a bloody forge that hardened the United States into its modern political identity. Entering the 20th century, the nation evolved into a global industrial powerhouse. This trajectory persisted even through the severe economic devastation of the Great Depression in the 1930s. The post-war era saw American technological dominance ripple across the globe, driving massive innovations in telecommunications, computing, and space exploration. The internal focus of the late 20th century was interrupted on September 11, 2001. The attack on the World Trade Center killed nearly 3,000 people, pulling the nation into a global war on terror that redirected its military and economic resources for the next 20 years. From Ice Age hunters tracking game across a land bridge, to centuries of maritime explorers, to modern immigrants, America is an ongoing narrative constructed by successive waves of human arrival. The discovery of the continent is an active, continuous story of human convergence. And if you want to understand how the world connects next, make sure to hit subscribe.